Do you need encouragement to turn tragedies into your own triumphant life story? If so, this podcast is for you. Listen to powerful guests who have persevered through challenges so you can gain strength to build your championship life. The host of Professor of Perseverance podcast, Dr. James Purdue.
Hey, good morning again. Today it's time for us to get fired up, get some motivation, let's get some inspiration, something that can help us get through whatever we're going through today and make life a little easier, because we know once we get through it, we don't like it when we're going through it, right? But once we get through it, we've survived, and now it's time for us to pay it forward to the next person ahead of us in line. Today, our guest has gone through a rare cancer. You know, we heard people go through cancer. I had a little cancer scare years ago, about 6 years ago. And so we're going to talk about this rare cancer, what he did to overcome it, and we'll talk about his book that he come up with after this. So welcome to the show. Whoa, there we go. We want a bigger picture of you there. Edward Miskie, come on in, buddy.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing it, and doing it all day long.
Glad to hear it. I love that we somehow have managed to match your background with your shirt with my shirt. Somehow we are fully coordinated.
Yeah, wearing that blue. I like that blue. So
yeah. This is the color of my old bedroom when I grew up.
There you go. I bought my house. It's been 30 years ago now, and they painted it some light blue with white on top. And I remember when I went to go buy curtains and everything at the store, and I told her, "Hey, just bought my first house, had it built and everything." And I said, "Bought my first house," and she says, "Oh, you're gonna need curtains for the spring and curtains for the winter and curtains for the." And I said, "Oh, hold it, stop right there.
How about just curtains? Hang on a minute."
I said, "Hold on." I said, "I guarantee you buy. I'll buy curtains today. You come in 30 years from now, it's gonna be the same curtains.
Same curtains.
And
I know. I hear you.
I said, "I'm not painting the house unless it just absolutely has to." I said, "It's going to look exactly like when I first built. Now it'll look dull and used, but no. I don't need a curtain for every day of the year." And
no, I have the same curtains I've always had. They're just in different windows with different apartments.
Of course, this is a lady at the store that was pushing me for that, and I said, "Nah, I think we just do this."
Excuse me, ma'am. Do you work on commission, ma'am?
That's right. I'm sure at Wally World not.
Oh no, definitely not. She was just excited and probably bored.
There you go. And probably got excited because, hey, helping someone with a new house. All right. So
right. Something someone working at Walmart will never be able to
do. My dog, I got a service dog, and he's 15 years old now. He's getting on the later length. But when I first got him, if I dropped my keys, he'd pick them up for me, and my shirt, he'd pick them up. He could pull the door open, close the door. I mean, he was awesome. Oh, he's still awesome, but he can't do all this stuff being so old now.
Mm-hmm.
And but he actually at Walmart was his favorite walk-in establishment.
Aww.
When it's raining, we can stay dry. When it's hot, we can stay cool. When it's cold, we can be warm. And boy, he got over there, and then people just fell in love with him. They even made a Walmart tag with his name on it. So
that's really sweet. I love that.
They were great.
What's the dog's name?
Ricardo.
Ugh, I love it.
Ricardo. He's been a great one. Before we get started, I'm going to tell you how I knew he was the dog for me. I went to Orlando for Canine Companions for Independence. Anybody need in search of a service dog that's in a wheelchair or other disease, something that's holding you back, go to Canine Companions for Independence. Their process is lengthy, but it's well worth it. Okay. So I went to Orlando to find the last phase to train with 4 or 5 dogs for 1 week. The last week while I'm down there, they gave you the dog they felt that you should be with to work with the final week with them. So 4 or 5 dogs, 6 dogs I've worked with this whole week. And one of them was my boy, Ricardo. Now here's how I knew I wanted him. They were showing us one day how they let their dogs play together. They didn't let them just, we were working with 19 dogs. There was 10 of us getting a dog, and they were working with 19, but they had like 79 of them in the back that are still being trained to get ready for the next group when we leave. Okay. So They said, so we don't just let them all out run together, So they let 3 or 4 of them out at a time out of their kennel and let them run for about 4 or 5 minutes and play. Then they put one out, bring one in. Then one of the 3 that's still there, will go out and then introduce a new. Well, all of a sudden they got my boy Ricardo. He comes out. He's taking off. He bowled 3 of them over. I mean, he knocked them over. That's how excited he was to get out there and play. And they Canine Companions, this wasn't right, said he was just a doggy. They put him in doggy timeout because he run the others over. And I said, that's
my dog.
Yeah. Is it not that I condone bullying in the playground? No, I don't. But that's the dog for me. Yeah. And I was fortunate because they choose who they feel is best for you. I had no choice. But it worked out. I got him. Oh, he's been a blessing.
I love that. And may we all just have a shred or ounce of joy and unbridled happiness that dogs have for just a minute in our lives. They're just the best.
Oh yeah. I mean, they get up all day long wagging their tail, and I mean, when they're ill and sick because they don't wag that tail and stuff. But the other than that, but another short story. One dude said he knows his dog loves him more than his wife loves him. And he says, let me give you an example. He says, I take my dog, if I put him in the trunk of the car and shut the trunk and come back an hour later, said he's wagging his tail, jumping up, kissing all over me. He said, if I put my wife in there for an hour.
Maybe not the best comparison, but
all right, everybody, let's get started. People's heard my story, so let's get on with you. Okay, a rare cancer, and you're celebrating your 10th year cancer survivorship. So congratulations, 10 years.
We're past 10 years now. We're almost at 11, actually.
Oh, 11.
Enough.
All right,
Oof.
awesome. So that's awesome. Glad to hear it. So
Thank you.
You know as well as I do. Like I said, I had a little cancer scare years ago, and mine fortunately been one of those false negatives or whatever you call it, false positives, I guess. And but still, when we hear that C word, the first thing that comes to people's mind is my life is over. We just go straight to death thinking it.
Oh yeah.
So,
all right. I think that's human nature too. I mean, when I was diagnosed, I was only 25, and I just turned 25. I think it was a month after my birthday or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a weird place to be in because yes, your brain does do that, and you're like, well, this is the end. But then there was still a part of me that was like, nah, I got this. We're good. And it was very hard kind of balancing that tightrope of that intersectionality between I'm fucked and I'm going to be great. So, it was a weird moment, and I'd be lying if I said that throughout the whole period of treatment and whatnot, I didn't have moments where I was like, well, this is the end. Mm-hmm. And I should say goodbye to people now.
Especially sometimes that treatment's worse than the cancer itself. That you have to try to beat. Again, mine was a false positive, so I didn't have to do any treatments or anything.
Yeah.
But I did witness my mother went through a lung cancer and had to remove part of her lung and had to do the radiation and chemo and everything. And now she's been around 20 plus years after that. So, but yeah, I didn't go through. But yeah, sometimes that treatment, you may want death to come.
Well, there's that, but I mean, I kind of always push back on that a little and say that actually surviving is a lot harder than treatment itself. And I only really say that because, treatment, at least, that's, to me, that was the easy part. Yes, mm-hmm. I had chemo and I had blood transfusions and I had medication that I had to take and steroids and injectables and prophylaxis and radiation and a stem cell transplant and the whole nine. And it was just the craziest. It ruined my body and all of that and, screwed with my head a little bit, but a lot bit. But, mm-hmm. Once it was all over and all of that structure went away and it was congratulations, you're cancer free. You get to go live life now. And it was what?
What does that mean now?
There was, right. Because, and I mean, I'm sure that you can relate to this in some ways. And I think anyone who's gone through anything serious can kind of relate to this in any kind of way is that like you change when something like that happens. Once you're through it and it's over, not only is the person that you were before completely gone, like that's it's just like you're that person's I talk about multiple deaths a lot, and that's kind of what I refer to it as.
Mm-hmm.
Like that person's long gone and you are standing on like solid ground now being like, wait, but what do I do? Because you don't have doctors and nurses and family and friends like telling you where to go and what to do and what not to eat and what to eat and what, you know, all the rules that you have to follow, all that goes away. And you're like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
now what?
Yeah. How do I go back to the way it was?
Yeah, it's
After
like it's like a full identity crisis, like multiple times over.
I'm all for this stem cells stuff that they're
Yeah,
using going through. Again, I'm a spinal cord injury, and I believe that's going to be a big help in the spinal cord injury people.
yeah,
And I think, I mean, they're using it now in other
yeah.
areas,
I mean,
but
some of the things
I
that
think
they've
it's
been
going to
able to
be, I think
do.
it's going to be huge in the
Oh yeah.
future.
Some of the things
And
that they've been able to do with stem cells, even in the last decade, have been incredible. I mean, and even in regards to cancer specifically, like stem cells used to be the go-to thing, and now it's not anymore. Like they've already moved past it. They still use it for things, but
mhm,
there's like other treatments that they've now developed that are a like more advanced version of that kind of treatment. And
mhm,
I remember when you know, things were at their very worst in the hospital. I was like I hadn't had the stem cell transplant yet. I was really apprehensive about it because of how it was described to me and what the original protocol was. But I remember reading this story about a woman in Europe, I think Spain, who had esophageal cancer, and they had, or like trachea or something in your throat,
mhm,
and they built a synthetic trachea, let's say,
mhm.
and they like soaked it in stem cells. They treated her, they like predisposed her to stem cells, and then
Yeah,
they surgically put it in, and
her cells
it
grew
saved
around
life. Yeah, yeah,
this frame.
exactly. And it was like, what in the world? And I just remember reading that and being like, this is the future. Like this will
Hmm.
solve everything. Like let us all just bathe in stem cells and
There you
live
go.
there.
That's right. That's right. All right, Edward. So you're 25, just turned 25. Now, how did you come about to learn this cancer? What's the name of this rare cancer? And go from there now.
Okay, so the actual diagnosis was a rare enlarged B cell Burkitt's like non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So there's a lot to, you know, unpack
Yeah.
there. But I found out that I had it because I couldn't not know that I had it. It started out as a tiny little lump under my left arm, and over the course of 5 months, it grew to be about the size of a grapefruit. So there was
Hmm.
like no denying that it was there. We used to call it my
Yeah.
third boob.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
That it just like I couldn't put my arm down all the way. I had to like adjust my shoulder around it, and then it would like stick out the side.
Hmm.
At some point it was like decolored, it like changed colors. It was weird. It was like a disco ball. It was very strange. But you know,
Other than being there, was it painful,
no, I had
discomfort?
no other
Just
symptoms at all.
had no way to position? Yeah.
I couldn't put my arm up all the way because it was pulling on things.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
So for me to like raise my arm above a certain point, I couldn't do it. But aside of that, like my GP, when I went to him to be like, hey, what's going on with this? And he's like, well, I think it might be X, Y, and Z, but like, do you feel okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm great. He's like, you look great. He's like, what? I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah.
So I really didn't have any other symptoms I was aware of other than this giant mass that had formed under my arm, and it had spread over to my clavicle in a very small way. And then we found out later down the road, months after we had started treatment, that it actually could have been on my spleen because
Okay.
it had shrunk. And no one told us that. You know, that was just like a scan that we had later that they were like, huh, interesting. So yeah, it was like life was normal. I was going to the gym, I was working, I was doing all the things, and I just like one day was like, I need this biopsied, and that was kind of the train had left the station.
Yeah. All right. Hey, before we go any further here, now, not to mention just Edward Miskie is a rare cancer survivor working on his 11th year, but author Miskie.
There she
Title is,
is.
there you go, called Cancer, Musical Theater, and Other Chronic Illnesses. The 10-year cancer survivor anniversary edition. You can go find it at Amazon and all of the place. Walmart. There you go. I remember
Yeah.
that in your
That was a
thing you sent
surprise
to
to
me.
me. I didn't know it was going to be there.
Yeah.
Barnes and
So
Noble is the one that really hits me, though. It's in Barnes and Noble, and that makes me feel so good because I used to hang out at Barnes and Noble in the city when I was younger and had no money, and I would just sit there and get like a $2 coffee with my laptop and sit and people watch and write all day long.
mine, one of my first book is it's on the Barnes and Noble, not necessarily in the store now because it's so old, but go to the website, you can still find it. So,
That's
or
amazing. I love
yeah,
them.
that's all. I love their going in there, like you said, get it, get old cup of Joe and sit there and browse
Yeah,
and
and
read a little bit.
they're having like a comeback. Like they've recently opened new stores. Like what?
There you go.
I love that.
So, all right. So let's get back into it. So everybody else, hey, go get you a copy of the book here, and I'll get a link to it later and put it in the bottom of the show notes for people to make it easier to find. So, all right, go ahead, Edward.
What do you want me to do?
Oh, well, let's talk about the treatments. We got the main lump and everything, and you gave us a nice disease name with Hodgkin. I got that part at the end. I didn't catch all the other, but well, I mean, so what kind of
Quite a
treatments and
title.
how long the treatments and
Sure.
how
So
often, how frequency, how.
yeah. So front to back, like first chemo to cancer free was only 10 months. It felt like a hell of a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say
Oh,
that.
yeah. I remember again. I remember my mom. And,
Yeah,
yeah.
it just dragged on for fucking ever. But I was supposed to have, I think, 6 or 8 rounds of chemo. I only ended up doing 4 because it wasn't working. Every time
Mm-hmm.
we would do it, it would shrink down and then it would grow back once we were done. And that chemo was overnight. I would be in the hospital for like a week at a time.
Mm-hmm.
My first day there, I think, was 10 or 11 days. Just because like they wanted to monitor everything. It was the first time I was being exposed to it, and they wanted to make sure that my body responded
Mm-hmm.
correctly to it. And so I was like, shacked up in the Upper East Side in this hospital for
There
2
you go.
days. But once we were done and we decided that that wasn't working, I also had put a stop to my intrathecal chemo. So like they went into my spine through my spinal column
Okay.
and were taking out spinal fluid and replacing it with chemotherapy, which was a horrifying experience because no one ever didn't miss my spinal cord. So like I had nerves shooting off in my legs and all kinds of things. It was awful. But we put a stop to that after like I think number 6, where it was like, okay, well, all of these scans are coming back negative, so I think it's pretty safe to say that it's not going to end up there. So can we just stop doing it? Because they started to build up scar tissue in my spinal column, and it got harder and harder and harder for them to go in. And so the harder it got to go in, the more painful it was to go in.
Yeah.
It was a mess. So that was that. And then we kind of decided on doing a protocol of 30 days of radiation. So it was 5 days a week, just one appointment every day for 5 days for a month. And I actually kind of liked radiation because I didn't, it didn't make me sick. It didn't make me tired. I could still function as a person. My hair started to grow back a little bit. My beard started to come in a little bit more. And I was able to like go out in the world a little bit. And I, in a weird, sick and twisted way, kind of liked radiation.
Yeah.
Even though it like fried my skin and turned it black. It was gross. And that kind of tether, some leeway on the leash got me in a little bit of trouble because I was like, well, I feel better now, and like radiation is going great and it's almost over. And so when it was over, I decided to go to Florida to see my little sister. And while I was there, I was like, I'm going to go swimming in the ocean. And like, when you have zero immune system, that's a real shit house idea.
Yeah, I can see
that.
yeah. I can see that not being a good approach at the moment.
No, definitely not. So I ended up getting a parasite.
Mm.
Almost died from that. I lost like 15 pounds in 4 days. Well, can I have that again really quick? Just real quick, one more time. But it was just this really long road before I had to make a big decision. The hospital that I was originally at wanted me to do a stem cell transplant where someone else was my donor. and that scared the shit out of me, and I
Yeah.
didn't feel good about it. And there was just so many times where I was like, why do I have to have someone else be my donor? I'm perfectly capable. I'm like, I was 25 again, like I was in the best shape of my life. I was otherwise completely and perfectly healthy. There was no reason why I shouldn't have been able
Mm-hmm.
to be my own donor. And yet they kept pushing this and pushing this and pushing this. And I just got to the point where I was so uncomfortable with how aggressively they were pushing it that I just told them no. I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going to another hospital. I'm getting a second opinion. I don't trust you right now. Like the way that you're pushing this is making me
Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
uncomfortable. So I got my files and all of my biologics or whatever you want to call them and went off to a different hospital
Mm-hmm.
and got a second opinion. And they were like, they misdiagnosed you and this is
Oh
what we're
no.
going to do moving forward. And it was a mess. So that hospital is where I ended up doing the stem cell transplant. And I'm super glad I did because their protocol was much more favorable and they let me be my own donor. We got just enough, like by the skin of my teeth, got enough stem cells to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But you sit on a dialysis machine for 5 days in a row with like these, pencil sized needles in your arm, like sucking blood out.
Yeah.
Like, centrifuging it around. It was a really crazy time, but the previous hospital wanted me to do the stem cell transplant and then full 3 rounds of full body radiation. So 90 days of full body radiation. I'd look like a seal right now. I'd have absolutely no hair. Like even the place where I had radiation, the hair still has not grown back. And we're talking over a decade now. And that was just 1 round. So if we would have done 3, like I'd look like a
Yeah.
dolphin.
Mm. I
Um,
mean, what scares me is when they had the misdiagnosis. That
yeah,
just
it wasn't so bad that they were like, well, this ruined everything. But it
yeah.
was it was bad enough that my doctor, who knew the other doctor, was like, shame on her. She should know better. And
Yeah.
like didn't even look at a microscope. She just took my like my slide that had the cells on it and she like held it up to the light and was like, that's not what that is. And she was like, it's actually this. And it was like, holy shit.
Wow.
Like, no microscope,
Wow.
just raw dogging it with the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
eyeballs.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad
So
you found one that good then. I
oh
mean,
yeah, she's top
overall,
top tier. She's one of the go-to people for lymphoma in the world. Like she's incredible. And
yeah.
I was very fortunate to be able to be on her docket, if you will.
There you
But she did yell at me for the parasite. She's like, what the fuck are you
go.
doing?
Yeah, that's right there.
Please
Come
stop.
on, man. Come on, man. You got to help us help you.
I know. I loved her, but I was terrified of her. Every time she came into my room or I had an appointment with her, I was like, I don't want to see you. I don't want to look at you. I feel
Yeah.
like you're gonna choke me out and kill me or
Yeah. Yeah.
something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So,
but we ended up
well,
being
that's
cool.
a lot of respect for your doctor, though, when you go, oh, I know they're going to beat me out this time.
Oh, well, I mean, and she was like 5'2".
Yeah. Oh,
She was
yeah.
the tiniest little woman you've ever seen, and just like was in mini skirts and blouses and 6-inch heels all day long. And I was like, I just had this admiration for her, but also terrified of her because of how, um, I mean, I don't want to say good at her job, but just like the way that she would be so direct with me in such a sensitive time.
Hmm.
Ended up being helpful, but in the moment it was like, oh, I didn't want to go see her.
All right. So now with the second hospital and doctor, how long was this procedure that you went through?
So
Of course, again,
because
adding the parasite didn't help
right, well that's
matters.
what I was gonna say.
It gave it a little more extended.
I had a number of complications that I mostly brought on myself that prolonged it. It would have been that I would have gone into my transplant, I think, in April or May, and I would have been done by May or June. And what ended up happening because of the complications that I did have is that I did not actually have my transplant until July. And
Okay.
so I was out pretty quickly. I was only in there for 21 days, which is very short. And then I went home and I had 100-day period where they were like, you might not live the next 100 days, but this is going to be what we determine whether or not you still have cancer in your body. And if you do, fuck. If you don't, great, you're good.
Yeah.
So that's fun to deal
It's a
with.
coin toss at the moment. So,
Yeah.
so, all right. So when that's all over with, the 100 days come. They find out that you're as good to go. From there, I know my mom, she had to go do periodic testing afterwards, to make sure everything was still free, cancer free from it. So from there, all right. So then, total from the beginning to end, almost 11 years later, and question I got to ask right now: we're seeing the happy-go-lucky Edward, laughing, making jokes, and having a good old time. And I know, like I said, going through the process is not fun. We may not be having a good old time, but before all this took place, were you the happy-go-lucky, or did you learn to be a different person because life is short and what happens? What could happen?
I mean, I think I wouldn't say I don't think I'm very much like the person I was before. Not that I
Hmm.
wasn't like upbeat or resilient or anything like that, but it was more so that I was just like a scared, insecure asshole,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Hmm.
I like, even though I was terribly insecure, I still treated people like I was king of the world, and
Hmm.
I know that. And I knew it in the moment, but I didn't care because I was like, well, it's me, so it's fine. And so
Yeah,
like
yeah.
in a lot of ways I'm glad that that one's dead. So I think a lot of what I got out of that is that really nothing is as bad as it seems, I guess, is because like, if it's not that, we're good. Like
Yeah.
we started the process of planning my own funeral. So like as long as I'm not doing that and that's not the conversation,
Yeah, yeah.
like fine, whatever. It's all good. Everything's going to work out. And that's not to say that I don't have my highs or lows and I don't let things bother me, because I certainly do. Um but that really changed. That was a huge pivotal moment in my whole life. And you know like controversially to say that, I often will talk about how cancer is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Mhm.
And it's because, one, that idiot asshole shit for brains kid is no longer.
Uh-huh.
But also I wouldn't be sitting here right now with a book and all the other things that have gone on around it had that not happened. And honestly, I wouldn't trade this for anything. I love this. This is like exciting for me.
Yeah, you're not the first one that will go through like again, I got my neck broke playing football, and not that I'd want it for anybody to be paralyzed and everything. So, but fortunately, I mean, like you said, I've done a lot more than I thought I'd do in life. Been to different countries. Again, me writing a book, that's crazy. And yeah, only thing that I regret, and I had no control over it, is my family having to go through it with me. They're there with my ups and my downs, and at the very beginning, there's a lot of downs until you figure things out. And so, yeah, that's other than that. Yeah,
But
I mean,
you need
I
them
can't
there.
say.
That's what
Oh
they're
yeah, yeah,
for.
yeah, yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's, I mean, not that's what they're for, total period, the end. But like, my family was there too, and we had really, really hard lows and really good moments. And I think one of the things that I often impress upon people who are in the moment of facing something serious is that try to intentionally and purposefully create good memories. We would have parties in my room. I would throw parties at my apartment. We'd go out and do dumb shit in the city
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
like I wanted, in the back of my head, it was like, well, if I don't make it, this will be a great moment for everyone to look back at. And if I
Hmm.
do, then we can look back at it and laugh at it
Together,
together.
together. That's right.
Exactly.
Funny
And
moment.
so,
Yeah, funny moment when I was in the hospital. I was on a striker frame, and I'd lay 2 hours on my back, and then they turned the whole bed around, and then I lay an hour on my stomach so I wouldn't get pressure sores. So every 1 and 2 hours, I'm turning for 2 weeks. And my grandmother was a nurse, and she came in one day. I mean, it was early on, probably 2 or 3 days into the turning on the striker frame, and she asked the nurse on floor. Now she wasn't a nurse at this hospital; she was a nurse in another hospital. But
Mhm.
asked the nurse about a ladder, and they go and bring her a ladder in. And my grandmother's taking Victoria's Secret pictures out of the catalog and taping them to the
no.
taping them to the ceiling. That way, when I'm looking up, because I couldn't watch TV, that I had something to look at.
Oh
So
my God,
that's my
that's so
grandmother.
funny.
That's my grandmother.
Oh
So
my God, you should find that model and write to her and be like, hey, so just so you know,
that's right. You got me through
you got me through all of this.
1983.
That's so funny. Oh my
So,
God.
All right. So
Your
yeah,
grandmother
yeah.
sounds like a
That's
star.
that's the only thing is mine is that the family had to go through it. But again, their family they want to be there for you and
Yeah. I
everything.
mean,
And
honestly, at
I mean,
least
they're
you
like
had
as well as I
family
do.
there.
There was so many lows. Sometimes the low was so bad we hated each other.
I mean,
But then yeah, definitely loved each other
of
as
course,
it
but I
goes
mean,
through.
you hear stories all the time about people whose families weren't there for them.
Oh
I
yes,
had friends and
yes,
boyfriends walk straight ass away from me during that period of
yes.
time. So like, the fact that your family was there at all is a blessing, regardless of how you might feel about the highs and lows. The fact that they were present and willing to help you and put up Victoria's Secret models, like that's what it's all about, man. Like that
Oh,
part is what matters.
oh yeah. Oh, and you made me think of another thing. My grandmother back in the '80s, we used to have a funny old thing. We'd eat M&Ms, peanut M&Ms is my
Yeah.
favorite. And the old saying was just goofy saying. We'd say green M&Ms made you horny. And so my grandmother would bring in a pound of M&Ms and she picked the green ones out to feed me.
Oh my
And
god, she sounds like an absolute
she was
treasure.
great. Yeah, she was great. All right, Edward, tell you, we're cutting this down here, man. Let's
Oh
talk a little bit
man.
more about your book and everything. How's that going? And tell people how more we can find it other than Barnes and Noble and Walmart and Amazon
And
and
right here on the screen.
right
Um
here on the screen. There you go.
well, I mean, if you're in New York City, the book is at the Drama Bookshop on West 39th Street. It's the only in-person store that carries it right now. That I'm aware of. There might be, I think there's a place in Kansas actually that does, so I could be wrong there. But as far as I know, it's the only in-person store that carries it. So please go there and give them money because they're a great organization and I absolutely love them. But for future, the book is actually being adapted for television. uh
Awesome.
we're going to be having a musical TV series that is going to be about this journey, and this is kind of the framework for it. um it's obviously on pause right now because of everything going on with the WGA and SAG after
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
strikes
mm-hmm.
and all the labor union strikes and whatnot. So we're working in solidarity with them, but we are working on the back end to make sure everything is ready to go when it's cool to go. And I'm really fucking excited about
I
that.
would be too. Yeah, to have something going on with that possibly me be involved in TV performance, theater performance. So
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's
Yeah,
great.
it's like everything I love. So I feel really good about it, and I'm excited as hell, and I can't wait. And so, if anyone wants to follow that journey along.
Well, I was going to just say now that as you're getting closer to completing the project, or if you want to, every now and again, if you want to get together and just to give a update, if you want
Yeah,
to do that for
absolutely.
listeners, and we can post little updates every now and again for them on the podcast to help follow you somehow, and uh, and especially when the projects, so we know how people can get to see it, get to
Oh
view
yeah,
it.
when it's out, there I will be relentless.
Yes, yeah. Oh, yes.
You
So,
will never get rid of me.
well,
Um
please, yes, we will. This is exciting for me now.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, so that's going to be happening, and that can be kind of followed along lightly at the moment until further notice with the strikes and everything at Edward Miskie on all platforms. It's the same everywhere, and yeah, that's kind of it. I mean,
All right, good deal. And I'll get the links and put it in the bottom of the show notes again for people to click it. For the ones listening, he said just find the at Edward Miskie, Miskie. And again, though, I tell the old thing, do the old Google search. That'll get you started anyway.
we're very Googleable these days.
That's right. So, all right, Edward, thank you for being here. I appreciate it, man. I'm glad we got to
Thank you.
meet. I'm glad I got to meet I don't want to say the new and improved you, but the better you.
It's the note improve me.
There we go. Well, I'm glad that if you don't have a podcast going, you need to get one going. I love your podcast voice.
Thank you.
So,
I do actually. It's called I Want to Be a Rich Bitch, and I do it with my friend Sarah Seeds, who is a brilliant creator, writer, actor as well. And we just it's fun. It's fun. We shoot the shit. We
yeah.
talk about industry shit. We talk about life stuff. It's a lot of fun.
All right, then. So, the name of it again is
I Want to Be a Rich Bitch.
There we go. All right. We'll get that in the show notes as well. So, all right. Hey, we appreciate it being here. If we can do one more thing here, we know that people are hurting and struggling. And if you can leave us with a positive message, that'd be awesome.
Okay. So I will often watch celebrity interviews on talk shows because I think they're really interesting because, like, you know, you see them on TV and in film and whatever, and you don't really get to hear them talk a whole lot except for at these press junkets. So like I will watch them. And there's two that I always keep coming back to. One I just saw today and I reposted it to my Instagram story is Seth Rogen talking about he says not everyone is going to make it, but if you don't try, you're definitely not going to make it. If you do try, you have a chance at making it. And even though that is like specific to the entertainment industry, it's kind of true for everything. You know, like if you're in a position where you need to fight for something, fight for it. Because if you don't, you know, you're not going to win.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you don't win by fighting for it, at least you did, you know. And the other one is Jamie Lee Curtis, and hers is that when she turned 60, she realized that she had all of this creativity inside of her left, and how sad would it be if she passed having not gotten that out. And again, kind of specific to the entertainment industry and people who are creative and creators, but it's the same thing. If there are things that you want to do with your life, do them at any cost, because like all of this could go away in a minute. And you know, we've seen that. Like it very well could have been lights out for the both of us. So like if there's stuff you want to do, then like who cares? Bills will get paid. Fine, whatever. But like if you have an opportunity or you create an opportunity or pursue an opportunity to do something that you've always wanted to do, whatever that may be, just go fucking do it.
Amen, brother. Appreciate it. Hey, we're talking to cancer survivor, author of Cancer, Musical Theater, and Other Chronic Illness, the 10-year Cancer Survivorship Anniversary Edition. Get you a copy. Be sure to go to the his podcast as well, Edward's podcast. Edward, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. I'm glad we got to meet and everything. Keep us in touch again with this TV performance stuff. It's going to be moving forward. And we'll get it going as well and push it for you. So
Will do. Thank you for
appreciate
having
you
me.
being here. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
everyone else, hey, share us out to someone you know can use a good laugh during a difficult time here and help you out. Remember, Edward, they say all this stuff on the internet is going to be there forever. So 100 years from now, someone's going to find this and you're going to help them, man.
Here's hoping.
There we go. All right, everybody else. I'm Dr. James Purdue, the professor of perseverance himself. Thank you for being here. Do something today, tomorrow, something next week that's going to help you persevere past your